Diesel with Journey to Programming here. I want to go through doing some research on job openings as though I'm somebody that's maybe coming out of college or maybe moving from another industry and looking for a job. I'm not going to go into resume building or detailing necessarily what exactly you should have in the different fields in a resume. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to jump on Google and we're going to go and begin taking a look at how to find job openings. This is specific to the software development world, and it's a very similar process if you guys are looking for jobs in engineering, any kind of technical role. And if you haven't done this before, follow along. If you guys have any kind of critique or comments about a better process to do it, then feel free to add them down below. So let's go ahead and jump in, all right? So we should go ahead, you guys should go ahead and see Google here in the background. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in and just do a basic search for jobs that are in my area, okay? So I've lived in Los Angeles for a few years. I'm not there right now, but Los Angeles has a pretty big market. So if you were to want to look for software development jobs in Los Angeles, you could start off with looking up literally software development jobs in Los Angeles and see what happens. It's a bit broad. You're probably going to get a lot of different job boards coming up here, and that's exactly what we're already seeing. So if you take a look here, if you guys can see my mouse, then you're going to see that we already have a whole bunch of job boards. So Vettery, this is an advertisement for them. That's why they're at the top of Google here, and you can see that it's denoted by the ad icon. Vettery is a marketplace like Hired. They're a new style of a recruiting firm or job board agency, and what they allow you to do is you place your profile on their website, and then you kind of put your requirements for a job, and the website itself becomes a headhunter. They have a whole bunch of portfolio clients, which are the companies and corporations looking for employees, and they work directly with them to find a match or a pair. Once they've found a match, you are normally scheduled for the first phone call with a recruiter with that company, and if something works out from there, great. I think they're great. I think Vettery is one of the, and Hired's the second one, so I mentioned Hired in there. Hired is a really popular one. I've got profiles on both, and I believe Hired does not have necessarily a vetting process to get in. You just go ahead, build your own profile, and then once you're ready, you're able to publish that profile, and you're live for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, where they're going to promote you to the corporations in the industries that you select and you want to target in your profile. Vettery, I want to say, does a similar process, but in order to get on their system, they're like the company TopTal. They actually will put you through some coding tests to see if you're a decent developer and if they're willing to take you on as a person they want to market. Let's go ahead and take a look at them, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and open their website and see if that's actually the case. So let's see. Once you're accepted to Vettery, companies reach out to you. They have some matching algorithm that they claim, which is going to show you off better to particular industries and companies that are looking to hire. If that works, great. I don't really believe them. It's awesome when it does. I know some people who have had success with Hired. I've done a lot of interviews over the years using Hired for the past 2-3 years, but take it with a grain of salt. So they've got a whole bunch of samples of people who have either been successful here. I don't know necessarily if they are going to require you to create a profile and then take a test like TopTal does. Well, let's take a look. Let's go ahead and act as though we're making an account here. Let's see. So my name is John Wisk, sorry, and my email is jwisk@gmail.com. I'm sorry if there actually is a John Wisk or a jwisk@gmail.com. I'm going to say I live in Los Angeles. Okay, they don't need to know a phone number, and I'm going to say some made-up password. All right, let's see what the next steps are. If this requires me to validate via email, then we're kind of out of luck, but it didn't. Great, so let's take a look. How many years of experience do I have? Let's say that I'm just out of college. Generally, I'd say 0 to 1, because that's the honest truth. Outside of college, you normally haven't done any professional work, so you really are pretty new to the industry. So you have 0 to 1 years of experience. If you've done internships that for more than a year, then I'd pop you up to 1 to 2 years. But if you haven't done internships, or you've just done a short internship over summer before going into your career, or maybe only one summer before your senior year, then you may just want to play 0 to 1 years. Your call. I've met some people that like to say all their college years were considered experience, and they some of them had luck early on. Other ones just kind of got roasted in their interviews by companies that brought them in for intermediate and senior level jobs, and they just didn't meet the par for it. Do I think that's a bad thing? No. They gave it a shot. They learned. They moved on. So do what you like. I'm going to say 0 to 1 years because most of you guys are coming out of college or moving from another industry and maybe don't have the experience. If you do, again, pick something appropriate. And let's see. So out of college, I've probably not had any of these. Out of college, I came out with actually a lot of web dev experience because I had been doing it freelance for several years before going into college. But out of college, I had my web dev freelance experience running my own little company. And then I also developed software development skills because I'm a computer science major. So I developed the OOP skills, which is object-oriented programming. And I wanted to move over to the software side. And I was thinking about game development at the time, but I was really just looking for any job that would let me grow and develop my skills. So at the time when I graduated, I most likely would have built it like this. I had 0 to 1 years of game development. I took a few courses in college for it, and then I also worked on some projects on my own. IT, I did have some knowledge. And let's see, tech. Management, no. Full stack, I definitely had years of full stack experience. I would have ended up putting probably 2 to 4 years at that time already. And they've maxed me out at only selecting 3 items here. So we're going to go ahead and pause there. All right, so continuing on. It looks like they maxed us out at 3 options here. I'm going to go ahead and roll with this because, for example, I did come out of college. I had several years of freelance web dev experience, and this kind of fits what I had then. It also fits my interests. I wanted to go into game dev. I'm actually going to remove IT, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that over to, let's see, at that time I was also interested in mobile and then embedded. So I came out of a computer science program and I learned some object-oriented, but I also learned some low-level development and worked with hardware. So embedded engineering was interesting to me, but in this case, let's say mobile dev. At the time, 0 to 1 years. I'm going to keep this at 2 to 4. I'm going to choose some skills here. Okay. So I had C# knowledge at that time. I had been working with it in a few of my courses. And as a game development student, I worked on it in there. Mobile dev, I did some Java for Android at the time. Let's see, JavaScript I knew, HTML and CSS, yep. Angular I had not been exposed to at that time yet. PHP I had been working with for years. And when I say JavaScript, I mean just vanilla JavaScript. I was not acquainted with many of the frameworks at the time. And I was kind of learning as I went. .NET, yep. Android, definitely. iOS, at that time, I was not acquainted with. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of simulate my skills when I graduated. I had C++ knowledge. I also had C knowledge. Let's see. What else I had? Are these just languages? Nope. So let's see. Do they want some IDEs? I had Visual Studio. Nope. Object-oriented programming. There you go. So I had OOP knowledge, and I've maxed out my 10 skills. And I'm going to mark my 3 best skills, which were at that time C++, PHP, and most probably JS. So that looks good. So then my next step here for finishing up with Vettery is Where would I want to work? Ooh, when I graduated, I was pretty open to moving anywhere because I wanted to jump into industry. If you are looking to get into industry and you're you're kind of down on luck for breaking into the industry, then I really recommend you open up your locations. If you're in Los Angeles and you haven't had luck finding a job, luckily that's a massive job market. So you can just keep on applying and applying and applying, and you may catch a job or a few interviews that land you a job. But if you just aren't landing one and you want to make it faster, why not open up to other cities? And anyway, let's just go to Los Angeles for right now. I don't need work authorizations. Let's continue on here. What roles am I interested in? I'm going to say back-end, mobile engineer, and game developer. And I would have been interested in permanent roles and contract and remote. Cool. So desired salary. I would love to tell you guys that everybody should get paid at least $100K a year, but that's just not the case. So a realistic salary for somebody coming out of college, unless you're going to a Big Four, Big Five company like Google or Facebook, who's going to pay you right out of college $120K and a load of benefits and a bonus and relocation. Generally, if you're graduating from college with a bachelor's degree in computer science, or you can hold your own in general because you're self-taught and you're going to get your first entry-level job in software development, you should be shooting for a salary between 40 and 80K. I think those are roughly good numbers. I knew people that got 85 working in San Diego. I'm from San Diego, kind of giving you guys that history there. I knew people that got 85K offers right out of college. They actually had them basically during our senior year. They had already done some internships and they were able to land it just from that internship. I knew people that got offers for around 50 to 70. I personally, my first real offer, which actually didn't happen for a couple of years after graduating, whole story behind all of that. I started my own company and I ran a business for several years. So forget my little gap there because I was doing my own thing. But when I got my first engineering job for a large corporation, my offer was in the 60 range. Okay. So I think that's a good range to place for an entry-level person. Now, I say you guys should toss in maybe 80K. I think that's definitely reasonable. For Los Angeles, though, maybe bring that up to 90. And let's see what happens. People may be kind of looking at that number and think that it's a bit high. I think most of the companies using a platform like Vettery, where they're probably giving Vettery some sort of monetary commission or they're paying for the service, they're likely able to afford it. And this is just a desired salary. Once you start talking to that company, you can discuss and negotiate whether or not you want to ask for more based on the roles and requirements that they actually explain to you or not. So let's continue on because I wanted to show you guys a little bit more than just this. So let's go to fill these out now. So in this case, I'm actively interviewing. I'm going to be an individual contributor, not a manager. As an individual contributor, you're a developer. You're contributing source code daily, and that's your primary job. I don't care what size the company is. Entry level, I think you should always go for mid/intermediate. In most roles, they'll say like a junior developer, an associate developer. I say that's crap, but look for just a developer, software engineer, not a junior software engineer, not a green software engineer, just software engineer. So I vote for that. You're not necessarily senior if you're just getting into industry. I think that's a little bit tough to be able to call yourself a senior, but titles really don't represent very much. And if you're that good, go for it. And I'm going to say junior, mid-level. I don't have any clearances, so let's just leave that blank. And industries I want to be in, let's say this. And there we go. I'm just doing this to see if they ask for us to do a test here. I'm going to leave all these blank. Wrapping up my resume. Nope. All right. So when I finish that, let's see. Welcome back, John. I think I was John Whisk, right? So we've been submitted. They'll be in touch from here on out. And built me a nice little profile here. That's kind of cool. And it reminds me just like Hired. So one of these days, what I'll do is I'll make a video of my Hired account, and I'll actually log into my account, and I'll show you guys around and let you see how that works. But yeah, once you've made a profile, they're going to get back to you. What they'll probably end up doing, if they don't do a test on Vettery like they do on TopTal, then they're just going to ask you maybe a few questions regarding, are you looking for this industry at this level role? Are you open to other locations? They're basically going to do a fact-checking based on the profile that you submit, and then they're going to ask you, hey, if there's anything that we can help you with, as your talent engagement kind of specialist or helper, they'll probably assign somebody to you. If there's anything we can help you with, just reach out via email or message or call. And their entire job here is to get you work. So if you can land it, they're going to be stoked. They get money, and then you'll get money. Anyway, so that's Vettery. Vettery is a good option just to at least put a profile on. Let's keep going here. So what we did originally is we looked at software development jobs in Los Angeles and searching on Google. Like I said, the first stuff that comes up are always going to be job boards. These are all ads. Hired again, like Vettery, Glassdoor. If you do not know what Glassdoor is, definitely check it out. It could, it's a great website. It lists reviews and people's reported salaries at companies, and also there's a job board on there. So it's a great tool, and if you are looking to get a job somewhere and you want to get an idea for what their interview process is, and they're listed on Glassdoor, then you may have an idea to give you a little heads up, right? So it may give you a little bit of advantage in the process, and then also you can look at what reported salaries exist there, so you can get an idea of what to expect when the salary conversation comes up with a recruiter. And it's just a way to keep yourself informed. Robert Half is a big headhunting firm or recruiting firm, very common one that you'll come across. And now in Google, you've come across some of the Google listed jobs. So they have a scraper. It's Google. Come on, they know everything. And they're basically relisting and simplifying the listing process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and expand this. And a lot of these are kind of a consolidation of job postings, either on job websites, like job boards, like what we just saw with Hired and Vettery and TopTal, and or job boards like Indeed or Monster or Simply Hired. This is kind of a consolidation. You could see that this is an entry-level software dev job. It's full-time. It's with a company called Synergistic IT in LA. I'm kind of curious if Synergistic is the end client here or if they're a recruiting firm. In any case, this is an entry-level software dev job. It says you can apply on Dice. Dice is another job recruiting platform. It's a job board website. So you can come on here, create a profile, then you could submit applications through here. But like I said, Google consolidates this stuff for you, which is awesome. It just simplifies the entire task and process. So if we look through this, I'm going to zoom on out here, then this is an interesting one. So it's a full-time entry-level job. Your title is software developer. You're not an entry-level software developer. That's not in your title. You're not a junior developer. You're a software developer, but the level kind of difficulty is entry-level. So they understand that you're coming out of college probably, or you don't have a lot of experience yet. Maybe you're moving from another industry. Their required qualifications, they want a degree in associates. It looks like they're pretty open, actually. It seems like they'd like to see that you went to school, but you're going to be working on Java applications, not JavaScript applications, and it seems like this is actually a good opportunity. If you want to learn OOP, you want an entry-level job, this could be a really good one. So if you guys are looking for jobs, check this one out. Synergistic IT in Los Angeles. It's a job post on Dice. It's been there for about 30 days. 80 to 100K a year is pretty great. And the contact info for that recruiter is on here. So that's pretty darn good. Let's move on here. So here's one listed as a junior software engineer. So that's going to be the title if you go there. I think I've come across these guys before, but let me take a look before I say anything. So this one has been consolidated from Career Builder, another job board website. And you can see that it's also on LinkedIn and some other website. I'm looking at that URL. I do not want to click on it. And let's see, Westlake Financial Services. That's great. Growing a strategy, strengthening. Okay, they're kind of tooting their own horn there. All right, they want a developer. They want a generalist, somebody that knows kind of the web stack languages, but they also want somebody that can do some desktop development, most likely. It looks like Perl is in here. I don't know if any new students are learning Perl. It's not very complex. You'll pick it up pretty quickly once you jump into it if you have some experience developing software. And they want people to work on Linux, so I assume they have stuff running on old servers. Your responsibilities include integrating with other stuff. So you're probably going to be integrating with some APIs from other software and vendors. Third-party systems, mission-critical business. So they've got CRMs, they've got a ERP set up. So they've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. They're looking for somebody at a junior level. So I don't know what they're looking for in terms of pay. They want only local people. They want somebody that can do just about everything. They want a generalist. They want somebody that's pretty well experienced and educated, but they're labeling it at a junior level. They want somebody with a bachelor degree, SQL, multitasking, great. Full-time benefits, yep, don't get sucked into that. So I cannot tell how much these guys want to pay. So this is something for you guys to take to Glassdoor. If you go to Glassdoor and take a look at them, like I'm going to do right now, then check this out. So you have 233 reviews of the company with an overall rating of 2.7 stars out of 5. Why is that? I'm not sure. You can read through it. You can see that people kind of like it. People kind of don't. They don't recommend it. It's probably a massive corporation. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the salaries. Here we go. I'm not logged in right now, but there we go. So you can see what their salaries are for non-software jobs. If we were to log in, we could see a little bit more. But this could give you a good idea. I have a feeling this company is going to offer somewhere in the range of 40 to 60K for a junior developer job. That's not horrible. Again, it works, especially if you want to jump in and get some work. But this first one I showed you guys at Synergistic, 80 to 100K is pretty awesome for somebody entry level. So let's continue on here. And I actually want to go back to the Synergistic one and just talk a little bit more about its requirements here, because I kind of skipped over that. So they want somebody that's highly motivated. So they want somebody that works hard. They want somebody that knows how to program in Java. A lot of undergrad programs do teach you Java. So if you're doing OOP, so taking an object-oriented class in a computer science program, you may do it in Java. If you're doing your entry-level courses, like the basic OOP or basic programming 1 and 2, sometimes they're taught in Java, sometimes C++. I learned it in C++ actually, and then I moved to Java when I took object-oriented programming and then data structures. So I have a variety of experience, but it really depends. It's not very complex to pick up, but it does have a different set of libraries, so you have to get used to it. So they also want somebody with some server experience on the Java side. In general, they want some server experience. For an entry-level person, I'd say that's a little bit tough to ask for. Most entry-level people haven't worked with servers overall, especially not production-level corporate or industrial-grade servers. I would say apply to this. Don't be intimidated by it at all. Just go for it. So let's take a look at this next one. So built in LA, software engineer for a company called SmartKit. I'm going to take a quick look at what SmartKit is. It's either a job board, it looks like an exchange website for betting or something for sports. I don't really know. Let's read the description, I guess. It's a betting exchange, okay. So if you guys are into sports and betting on sports and stuff like that, this may be an interesting job. Most of the ones that are for sports platforms, especially betting ones, or really what I'd call out there tech or greenfield tech, are going to expect you to be a pretty dynamic person. They're going to be a little bit rougher on expecting you to have some, a little rougher with giving you ramp up time, but usually they pay a little bit better if you get in. But they want you to be able to do pretty good work. I'm looking at their software stack right now: Linux, Vagrant, Flask, Postgres, RabbitMQ. So they've got a handful of kind of back-end stuff going on here. Postgres is the database, RabbitMQ messaging system. So if you're doing back and forth communications, whether it's a chat or something like that, or file chats, any kind of transfer protocols, I think RabbitMQ can wrap UDP, TCP, and HTTP communications all within it. Git repository system, and let's see what else they want. Come join final blah. They have researchers. I personally love working with other engineers, researchers, scientists, and PhDs if they're doing some cool stuff, especially because you get to learn a lot. But this does not say a ton about the actual role you'll be doing. They kind of toot their own horn here. Then they say what they're working with, which is great to know again. But let's see, functional programming knowledge they want. They want some, wow, they want everything. Apply again. So when you're coming out of college, this is sometimes intimidating. You read all of these requirements and all these recommended skills to have, and it's just so overwhelming. Don't overthink it. If you've worked in Linux at all, excellent. You've got a little bit of knowledge there. If you know what databases are and how to kind of work with them, SQL, if you've done any kind of SQL programming or written any queries, then you've got some knowledge of databases. If you've taken a data structures and algorithms course, you're good there. Great. Web stuff. So if you haven't done any web stuff, you should probably acquaint yourself with it. REST is a standard. If you don't know what it is, just look it up, and that'll come up. Look it up, obviously, in relation to website programming. So the next thing, protocol buffers. So again, a communication methodology. So I think protobufs are a Google protocol, if I remember right, because I've used protobufs once or twice, and then flat buffers, and it's a way of basically compacting information into a way which can be sent over IP, which is internet, and then once it's over there, you can unpack it properly. So another thing which you can just look up and you'll be able to figure out what they mean. Let's see, perks, great. Once you get your job, you can play around with the perks, but don't overthink it. So they also don't post their pay, but I have a feeling that this company, if you got hired for this role, would at least pay you 80 to maybe 120, especially in the LA area, and that's probably what I would want. If they did pay me like 50 or 60 as an entry-level person, then I would expect them to be pretty accommodating with the fact that I am entry-level, and I would want to be very transparent that I am a software engineer. I'm going to ramp up really fast. I'm really smart. I'm willing to work hard, but I may have to ramp up a bit to catch up here, and ideally, if they have somebody who is a senior there, if they can kind of tie them to me a little bit here and there during my first few weeks so I can learn the ropes, then I would be able to grow really quickly, and I'd be a very good person to have on their team. So that's the way I would kind of present that. You've got a software development position, a level 2 spot here. I think a level 2 spot usually has, to be called a level 2 person, in my opinion, you should have a couple of years, at least a few years of experience doing development. This company, let's see, required skills and experience, product-based company, looking to get a software engineer 2 on their team, digital experience platforms, core applications from scratch. So in this role, it looks like they're looking to get somebody who can take projects from end to end, which is actually a pretty complex thing to do, or a complex thing to expect somebody who has not done it for a few years to be able to do without a lot of guidance and hand-holding. They're also looking for somebody, so I got that from responsible for developing core applications from scratch in Agile. Again, the software development process, they're following an Agile process. That's great. It's a lot of fun until things get crazy. And then it comes into how your team handles Agile and if they're accounting for deadlines and schedule changes properly and scope creep. So moving on, they also want you to be able to mentor juniors or new developers. So, okay, this is probably like a mid-level to somebody with maybe a little bit more confidence to a senior level. And you can see here they're looking to pay somebody $125 to $135. That is definitely a little bit higher than an entry level would get, especially in LA. I definitely think this is a mid-level software engineering job. That's why it's a level 2. Level 3 at this company is probably the senior level roles, and they most likely don't use the junior software developer and senior developer titles. They probably just say level 1, level 2, level 3. That's what they did when I worked at Lockheed as well. So that's a very common way to do it. They want somebody with 7 years of Java development experience, 2 years of architecture experience. So this really indicates that you've been developing stuff from end to end yourself. And the reason I say that is architecture experience usually implies that you have some ability to design solutions, think about them, and then plan the back-end architecture, how the data is going to be stored, how it's going to be communicated, how it's going to be modeled and presented on the actual software application. So this requires a little bit more knowledge than somebody who hasn't done a full end-to-end development of a project themselves, or hasn't done at least all the pieces and knows how to communicate with other individuals on your team so that they can take over small bits and pieces and implement those, and then that can be integrated into kind of a central piece there. So let's see, comfortable mentoring junior developers, Java 2E. That's pretty standard. Yep. I think this is definitely a mid-level. As an entry-level person, you can apply to it. I think if you did, even if you got to the interview process, they're going to probably know that you may not be ready for a software engineer level 2 position, and maybe they'll move you down to a 1, and maybe they think you have a lot of potential and you can move into it within a year or two. I think you should apply to it. It doesn't hurt. This is with JobSpring Partners. That is a recruiting firm. They're a big one. They're all over the States, and I don't know who this end client is. I should have mentioned that at the beginning, but it was just posted a day ago, and it's on Career Builder, LinkedIn, JobSpring. Yeah, it's all over all the job boards. So this company's looking to hire someone. Here's one from IBM, but let's go ahead and kind of scroll down here and take a look at what else is in here. So Volt, that's another job board or agency. I don't know who Seven Cups is, but they're looking for a full stack dev. So they're probably working on web applications. They want somebody who could do front end work as well as back end work. Let's take a look at what they're looking for. Full stack. Empower every human to care for another. That's great. I like people that care. Emotional support and behavioral health. So they started, it looks like they started with a Y Combinator, kind of a incubator or something like that in 2013. That's awesome. That means that they've survived kind of the really difficult years. They've been around for 6 years and they're really starting to try to grow. Let's see. It looks like they're really trying to change the world. That's awesome. I hope they have success, and I hope they run their company well. So let's see. They're seeking a software engineer full stack. You're going to build programs, systems, users. Okay. So you're going to code and test. You're going to analyze user needs. So I don't know if this means you're actually going to meet with any users or actually do some user play testing or user testing of software. You probably have a team that's going to be doing that for you, then delivering to you some sort of analysis of what users really want. If you do get to talk to customers, that's great. I think that that's always fun. You learn a lot about your software and how to improve it when actually talking to people. Let's see. Let's move into here. So they've got an interesting post. They want somebody with 1 to 2 years of experience, so you're not necessarily entry level. They want somebody that's a little bit better than that, but you should apply. If you're coming out of college or you've been doing your own studying and you want to get a job, this isn't bad. Okay, so here we go. It looks like they're doing React and Node, so they may have been on a mean stack or something like that. But that's basically JavaScript for both. OP, so they want 6 months of professional experience with React. And if you're entry level, you probably don't have any professional experience that you can actually put on here. Unfortunately, that's kind of the rough part. I think you guys should still apply for it. See if you get a call from the recruiter. If the recruiter asks you if you've worked professionally with React for 6 months or more, don't lie. Just tell them, and if they kind of deny you from there, that's how it works. But that's not a bad job. I actually really like the way they have this entire post described. I don't know how much they would pay, but usually these types of jobs pay in like the to 120 range. I think that's a really wide range. I would look around probably 90, where we were talking on kind of the range we were talking about on Vettery, maybe 90, 100, and see if they're going to meet you anywhere around there. And you may be shooting yourself in the foot with that high of a range, but let them bring you down. Let them say, yeah, we think you're an entry-level guy, but we're willing to give you a shot, and here's 60K. And then you can see if you want to take it at that point. I think, again, this is an interesting one. They describe the job well. They seem like they really want to grow. They want people who are interested in doing the job, but also interested in learning and troubleshooting and really making a good product. So that's pretty awesome. Who knows what the actual job is going to be like. So you get to work remotely. I love that. That's awesome. I think that definitely kind of gives them a step up, even if it's a slightly lower salary offer. Ooh, they cover your full insurances. That's always a nice little throw-in if you're looking for a job. And, yeah, I mean, again, give it a shot. I'm not one that's really into employment or working for others. I like running my own business, and I like kind of doing the running a business and making the sales and running a team myself and directing the vision of my company. So I've worked for a lot of people. I still do work for people as an employee here and there. And again, that's one which I would recommend. I would tell my friends and tell people to apply for it, or my students when I was teaching. So let's continue on here and take a look. Okay. You know, I'm actually going to move back to the search engine here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the search a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys looking at job applications directly with companies. So say you're interested in game development and you want to maybe go work at Riot in LA, right? Riot Games in Los Angeles, they've been kind of in and out of the news for the past few years, so most of you guys probably know who they are. So let's take a look at their website. So Riot Games, they're out in LA. Let's look at their jobs. So they have a ton of jobs right now. Let's go and lock it down to engineering. And let's take a look what they have. So they've got a lot of manager positions. They've got a junior Linux engineer. So they do use the junior acronym. This one's in Ireland. That's kind of cool. You can go to Ireland and work out there. I have a feeling it's going to be a rough interview to do from LA if you're trying to find a job out there and get them to hire you and then send you out to Ireland. But at the same time, give it a shot. Let's look at these LA positions, though. So let's see if I can isolate it to Los Angeles. Here we go. And they've got a handful of positions open. Got a lot of senior roles. But let's see, developer experience. Let's take a look at what this one is. So I just opened it into a second tab here, and we'll take a look at it in just a minute. Let's see, developer system tools, player platform. So I have a background, if you guys are wondering why I'm looking at game stuff, I have a background of doing game development, and I do have some knowledge on that side. I've worked on desktop applications, and I've worked on a handful of R&D type educational games, and I've been working heavily with Unity 3D and Unreal Engine for probably the past 7 or 8 years. I enjoy doing a whole bunch of different development projects. I really like working with companies that need custom or really uncommon solutions to problems which maybe they can't find on their own engineering team, so they're looking for a consultant to come on, or they're looking to hire my company to come in and help them develop something from scratch. That's what I enjoy doing, and that's really been a lot of fun for the past 10 years because I've got to use my web development skills, which I developed at a pretty young age, and then I've got to also utilize everything I learned in computer science to figure out how to integrate and collaborate between 2 different types of software: web-based software, desktop software, interactives with games. So it's been a lot of fun. That's a whole other conversation for another time. Let's take a look, though, at this Riot post. So they're looking for a software engineer and developer experience. So within high-impact team that allows developers around the globe who are valuable players, we build tools. Okay, so it's a tools team. They probably provide other development teams with ways to interact with Riot kind of sponsored or Riot services and products. Let's see, application participants. So it looks like you get to focus on one or more specific areas. That's kind of what RDX, their team, is focused on. Developers will build tools, product services to automate and interact with infrastructure that developers can hone in on their areas of expertise rather than needing to learn the nuances of infrastructure development. Gotcha. Okay. So a lot of this stuff sounds a lot more complex than it is. If you do not have website experience and you haven't done any kind of production level stuff, you're not going to know how continuous kind of service or deployment works. You won't know the importance yet of monitoring and operability, which kind of comes with time and understanding how deployed software tends to work and how important it is to be able to have the power at your fingertips to know when something is doing really well, if it's doing really badly, and kind of working off there. So there's a few things on here which you'd have to kind of pick up and learn, but it's not that you can't Google. Just look it up on Google, read into it on Wikipedia, kind of read multiple resources to get a well-rounded idea of what these are. And you're going to have to practice on your own here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the responsibilities. So create and operate tools, blah, blah. What other qualifications? Okay, so I thought so. They're not looking for an entry-level person. I figured that. Riot normally doesn't. And they're looking for someone with 2 to 4 plus years experience. You're probably going to be pretty experienced at this point if you can get this job. So they want continuous integration and development. Okay, they want experience with Jenkins for kind of that automated deployment process. Distributed systems. Look it up if you guys don't really know how that works. So if I remember right, ECS, I don't think that's the Elastic. Oh, maybe that is Elastic Cloud Server. So I work with AWS a bit here. And, it's Elastic Container Service. Okay. So Elastic, because it can kind of shift in size really easily. If you end up needing more memory or space while you're already running an application, all you have to do is go to the AWS console, tell it to expand, and you're good, and it can expand. It may go down for a few minutes just to turn off, reboot, turn off, reboot, reallocate space, and then boot back up. But these are all web platforms here. So these are web platform tools which you'll have to learn once you get into kind of a production environment, or if you simulate your own. If you want to learn some AWS, go to AWS's console. That's Amazon Web Services, and they give you a free account which you can learn from. Take some time to learn it. Some web protocol stuff, MySQL databases. So that's good to know if you don't have experience there. So I do think that this one would be a little bit rough to get at a entry level coming out of college without experience doing kind of a large complex project. But it's definitely doable. Just put in an application. The worst that's going to happen is they're going to deny you. I think Riot usually pays their engineers around $85K to $90, maybe a little bit less actually. But you can look it up on Glassdoor. I'm going to go back over to Google and look up a few other searches for you guys, just to give you an idea of how this could work. So one of the other areas which I like to look at is I like to use job boards personally, just because they consolidate it, just like the Google one did. I really like using Indeed, and that's just me. So I already had been kind of preparing for looking up software developer jobs in Los Angeles. So I have it up here. And all I did is I basically entered in software developer, Los Angeles, California. And it's already posting a whole bunch of options here. Here's a job for a senior engineer for $110 to $140 a year. I think that's great, but let's go ahead and narrow this before we start looking at stuff. So there's a whole bunch of options here on the left side, which allow you to narrow the types of jobs we're looking for, which is great if you're looking for something entry level or something you think would work for a new developer. So what I did is I selected full-time jobs only. I'm going to go ahead and select entry-level here, although entry-level and mid-level I think are both options for an entry-level developer. Don't be shy and embarrassed about submitting to a mid-level. Even if you don't qualify, no one's going to care. Recruiters are going to look at your resume for a second and either say yes or no, and then if you do get a call, no one's going to beat you up for doing a call at for a mid-level position if you are a junior just because you can't answer their questions or something like that. And even if they do say something about it, blow them off. Don't worry about it. Recruiters, the recruiters that do that type of thing are the bad ones that make everybody believe that recruiters suck in general. But it's not true. There are great recruiters out there. There's great agencies out there. But the few bad eggs really do make them all look bad. So just ignore those people. So let's take a look at this. I looked up software developer, and I've filtered for full-time and entry-level. Somehow I got an executive personal assistant at We Do LLC. I don't know how they got up here. I don't know. So I'm going to skip this one altogether. I think that's ridiculous. Indeed needs to work on the classifications there. But let's move down. So this is a senior back-end job that's classified under entry level. I think whoever decided to categorize their posts just made a mistake. So I'm going to skip the senior level. I'm going to go down to the software engineer for SunWest Mortgage Company. They have a really, really big range between 60 and 150K. That probably means they have a budget allocated to hire somebody, and they're looking for someone or anyone between an entry-level person that wants to be a software engineer and a senior-level person. So this is an interesting one. I can see that it's a C++ and Java job, possibly. Let's see. So I see C++ and Java here. You're going to be working on software, probably desktop software, I'd assume. Not a ton of detail. No minimum education or experience requirements. So that's kind of interesting. They really don't care if you have a degree. As long as you can do the work, that's great. I personally believe in that. If you can do the work, there's no reason to require you to have a piece of paper that says you went to college. It's a waste of my time. I don't want to see your piece of paper. If you can do the dang job, prove it to me. Let's do it. So I think this is a great one to apply to. Compensation plan. They want somebody with a year preferred of software dev experience overall and a year of Java. They want somebody to definitely work in LA, so they probably want you to work over in Buena Park. Not a problem. If you want to apply to this, I think this would be a great one to apply to. I think when you do apply to it, if you have C++ or Java experience, definitely write a cover letter and talk about a little bit of how that relates to this job. And maybe what you could do is you could say, if you're entry level and you haven't worked a professional job before, maybe talk about a project you did in class which allowed you to make like a scheduling system for a job scheduler. And you probably did that in C++, C# or Java, and how that would easily relate to writing software in their world. If they're working on form-based software because it's a mortgage industry for Windows desktops, or if they're making a web-based platform, which likely wouldn't be in C++ or just straight Java. But you can make it relate in that way. Just tell a little bit of the story and you'll be good. So I think that's definitely a good option. This is a funny line here. If you're looking to make a difference, this is a place to be. I don't know about that. They're a full-service mortgage seller / servicer. Not the industry that you're going to try changing the world with, but you may change the world for a few families or something like that. They may be stoked to get a loan. Great. So let's take a look at a few more here. Here's a software engineer one in Chatsworth, California. It's a junior software engineer position. Do you have a career goal? Do you have a mission? Our goal at Lange, I don't know how to say that. Okay, that's great. I can go for that. I think their goal is interesting. I just need to see exactly what they're doing. Cutting-edge styling tools and salon-quality hair products. Okay, they're looking to create a hair product type company. And they're probably already doing well if they're hiring an engineer. They want a junior, though. And your qualifications, they want 1 or more years developing back-end JS. So they're probably looking for somebody, Node. I was just about to say, somebody to write code in Node. They may or may not know what back-end they actually need, unless they have a developer there that's already kind of established that that's what they're using. They may have just chose it because that's what's hot right now. Everybody wants to develop a website or a web platform in Node and React. Anyways, so that's JavaScript. If you are interested in this, don't worry about this 1-year requirement. If you've done JavaScript at all, excellent. Just apply to it. And when it asks you, so if we go to apply now, name, phone number, let's say, what did I say earlier? John Whisk. Let's see. jwhisk at gmail.com. Okay, phone number. Continue. They want a file. I'm not going to put a file in there. Let me see if I can just find something. So they will receive a PDF, which I'm not actually going to let them have. So they want to know how many years of relevant experience you have. I would say 1 because that's what they want. And then what's going to happen next is you're going to have a confirmation page. Do you want to submit your application after you've answered their questions? You either hit apply or you hit back to cancel. I'm not actually going to submit it, but you can submit your application here. I have a bad feeling about this particular role because they look like a small company. They may not be able to afford very much. Also, additional compensation says other forms. I don't know what that means. Submit it. See what happens. If they give you a call back, if they are not willing to pay you something decent or competitive, and they're going to just compensate you with an array of yummy snacks and beverages, then it may not be a good job for you. If you need a job and you're desperate, who knows? Give it a shot. Here's a job for Sony. Here's a freelance software dev role, fully remote. They're willing to pay anywhere between $50 and $60 an hour. Let's see. If you were to apply to this and they were to only allow you to, they were to basically say you have to come in around $15 an hour, I would probably say no. I think $15 an hour comes out to be about high 20s, about $30K a year. But you have to remember, as a freelance developer, you're going to be having to account for your taxes on your own. You're probably going to want to pay quarterly taxes to account for it. And you're going to have a lot of overhead there, which is going to kind of suck. It's going to be a burden on you. So if you were to take a freelance role, the minimum I would recommend you take as an entry-level person, or even with a few years of experience, is at least $30, $35 an hour. Once you break that point, you start making enough to actually take the time to do all the taxes, to take care of that liability, and the fact that you don't have a full-time job because they want you to be freelance, which is, again, that's a rough one. At least they're not saying you have to work on-site, which a lot of companies do, which kind of pushes the border of misclassification between an employee and an independent contractor. But let's not get into that. Again, I think if you're entry level, you should at least be asking for around $30. If they bring you down to $25, you can consider that. About $15 is a bit low. That's something I would pay for a lot less than an actual developer that can work with this much. I mean, they want somebody that knows everything. So it looks like there may be a firm that basically contracts people out. So they may be a firm that's basically that's a what's the word? They provide hands or employees or contractors to other companies, and they just bill you out at a higher rate. The only reason I'm assuming that is because it was originally founded as a tour and adventure company, and now recently has launched the new division, Travel Moon Talent. So I'm assuming that because of all the tech that they want you to be able to know, and the fact that they have a wide range of looking for juniors to seniors, so I suspect that's what they're doing. They're basically becoming a hiring hand. Companies that need extra hands, they hire them. Oh, they have a very generic, what I think is a WordPress on here. I think I've seen this template before because I think I've used it. But let's see. Yep, so they're a company that provides developers. Okay. I would charge them $60. Minimum I would apply for there. Yep. Pushing on. Let's do one more. Let's look at this one. So you remember we looked at Synergistic IT earlier. They were looking for a software developer for their company. And here's another role with them, actually. They have 4 out of 5 stars here and 34 reviews. That's pretty cool. They're looking for a junior Python developer. That's the actual title, but the salary range is between 75K and 95K. That's pretty spot on for what I would think a junior level or entry level person could possibly get or should possibly get. And if you can get more, great. Let's see. There applies on manage the interchange between data between the server and the users. Okay, so you may be working on some sort of front end and back end receiving of data. You're like kind of working on the model kind of aspect or the controller between them. It's kind of an interesting mix because it kind of sounds like a full stack role to an extent. You're just not going to be doing the architecture side and implementing the actual databases and maybe the APIs. But then you're going to handle the data. So maybe you're going to be working on creating a schema, maybe using protobufs or flat buffers to transfer data to somebody or transferring it in a JSON format and helping a user or another company who's trying to integrate some kind of API receive that data and parse it. I really don't know. They don't have a ton of data in here. They also want you to know some front-end work. So it's possible that's what they're expecting. There's going to be data coming from a backend, from a server in some sort of format. Maybe you're going to hit an API endpoint. So you're going to write a piece of code that requests data from an API endpoint, and that returns to you some sort of JSON format of data. And then you need to be able to translate that JSON data into something readable by a front end. So that may be what this one is. I think this is an awesome one. If you know Python already or if you've been working on it in college or in your own self-studies, this is a great one to apply to. I do see that they wish that you have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science or Engineering. This is a great one if you're in another major and you want to jump into programming. You may be able to get by on this role if you have a little bit of self-teaching done for Python because they want a degree at least. But even if you don't have a degree, I'd apply to this one. Looks like they want some stable candidates. They want people that are looking to learn. They want somebody with unit testing experience. A lot of the times you'll learn that a little bit in college. You can really easily do some studying on unit testing. And actually, there's some good YouTube videos maybe I'll add down below on unit testing. But that's something you can pick up on your own. You really learn how to do it for a professional company or for like a large corporation by being at that corporation and learning their protocol for unit testing. Most of the corporations I've done work for or with have their own very specific requirements for the way they unit test. So that may be something you have to learn on the job. And having the foundational knowledge, though, to understand what unit tests are and how to possibly engineer based on testing, then if you have that knowledge, it's really beneficial when you're writing source code. So it may be worth your time to take a little bit of time to do that research. So I do think this is another good one. I kind of like Synergistic IT. I think that they've been posting decently well-formatted job requisitions, and I think they're realistic. So you guys may want to check this one out. And it looks like they are just another they're like a consulting firm or a staffing firm. That's the word I was looking for in relation to, what was that last one we just looked at? Travel Moon Talent, a staffing firm. It looks like they're possibly a staffing firm too because it says our candidates always get projects with well-known IT firms like Google, Apple, and PayPal. Oh, and Amazon. Cool. So they're providing helping hands to these companies for a price. They're probably reselling you. So if you're getting paid about 100K, let's say you're making 95K or 100K, right? You're probably making around like 40 to 45 an hour or something like that. And they're probably going to be billing you out around double that, if not more. And because I've never really heard of Synergistic, and I don't know how big they are, I doubt they're billing you out at like 200 an hour and then paying you only 45 or 35. 35 I think comes out to be around 72K, so that's kind of close there. So I think between 35 and 45 will put you in the range of 75K to 95K. They're probably billing you out at about 2 times your rate, maybe 3. So just a heads up, that's how staffing firms make their money. They have a lot of overhead that they have to account for. They usually have a handful of recruiters and then other professionals that work in their company to make sure that the operations are working smoothly and that they're getting clients to staff. So it makes sense, but that's generally how they work. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this session, but I'll probably do another one of these in the next few days in order to maybe dive a little bit more deeply into one of the other platforms just to compare and contrast against Indeed. I also want to show you guys my hired account so you guys see how that one works. And lastly, I think maybe showing you guys how I would structure my profile and the types of how to handle the responses that you're going to get to these applications would be great. So that wraps it up for this video here. This is Eastwood Journey to Programming. Again, I think what we've been focusing on this month is putting out job applications, trying to really get that job and understand how the industry works. And again, we're always focused on software development, but we've really been expanding into other technical fields. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below down there. And we'll catch you next time. Have a good one, guys.